So yeah, should be recording now, hopefully. So yeah, it's that time of the year again for a tier list. I'm just using this one to here to make this tier list video. So about every year for the past few years, I've done a tier list in Star Rail, just because I know this kind of like video content is really easy to make for YouTubers, so I try to space mine out, so that way, you know, I'm not just coming out with like a tier list like every week or every month or something and just spamming them. This list is not ordered. My previous one was ordered, and I wanted to talk about and compare the list last year. I know that the quality of this image is not great. I couldn't find one, so I just used the thumbnail's direct image, and it's like all compressed and stuff. But you can kind of make out the characters. I know it's really, like, there's Asta, there's March, and stuff, so yeah. We're gonna talk about what changed, what's the same with some of the characters and stuff. I'm not gonna go through like every single character, and I don't have like a script for this video because I made this list and then I was doing other things when I had time to write the script, and I couldn't remember what exactly I made this list like, so I didn't want to make like a new list and then have the script like conflict that, because I really was satisfied with this version of the list and stuff. So yeah, it's not ordered. This one was ordered to an extent. There's something that got wrong in this list that I think have changed. But yeah, I like tried to order this list a little bit, so you can kind of see some of my ideas. Like the top tier is ordered, I will say that much, but yeah, I also changed the way that I categorize this, because my tier list is more of a pool value tier list than a necessarily like which is the best character in the game. It's which do I think, if their banner was in the game right now, I would recommend you pull, if they even have a banner or whatever. Like some characters like Herta here just don't have banner because they're 4-star obviously, but or like Remembrance Trailblazer. But yeah, we'll get into that. So and everything. I just have some background music on as well, so from M4, it's just some a bit chiller music and stuff. So I think that my list has aged fairly well for the time, at least. The main placements that stick out to me as a little bit of an over-exaggeration in current meta to say they would be good is like Moe's, I think, was over-exaggerated just because I didn't actually know, and I still don't really know what he does, because I never bothered with building him. I had just heard people say, you know, he's kind of like Imaginary March, and I built my Imaginary March, and people were saying he was better, so I was like, I'll just kind of trust the general word on that. But yeah, I don't think he's worth building nowadays anyway, so it's kind of not relevant. My evaluation of Serval has grown a lot, actually, because I've done some testing with her. I think that she's actually somewhat viable in Pure Fiction. That's pretty much it, but in Pure Fiction, she is pretty usable even in the harder difficulties, by the way. And stuff. But yeah, I mean, we can get into this. So as you can see, the list last time was kind of just like where they go in a team slash what I like, if you think, or if I think you should pull them or whatever. This version is a similar way. So these are characters I would say are optimal for anyone to have on their account. Like pretty much 99% of players are gonna have these four, all four of them as well. Like, I would say you probably want, like, 2 to 3 staples, if you're not, like, getting every character, and then, like, maybe 1 or 2 viable, semi-viable, same thing, like 1 or 2, and then the fell-off tier I don't think are worth investing in resources into at this point. I don't think any limited character has made it fully to the fell-off tier. There are a lot that are really close. Like, I think Argenti is one that is really close to being in the fell-off tier. I'm just kind of a Jing Yuan hater, so I also think he's kind of in that area, and kind of Blade, just because Blade's niche is getting a lot more crowded and stuff in recent times with how they reworked him and stuff. I don't think the rework was necessarily like a bad idea for Blade, it just didn't really do enough to have anything really change with them. But yeah, we can get into some of these characters. So I'll just do like a brief overview of my thoughts on the characters above the fell-off tier. I do think Xuan is at the top of the fell-off tier, though. I think you can still sometimes use her in certain situations, but even then it's pretty limited nowadays. And I'm trying to make the Trailblazers useful. I'm trying to do some testing and stuff with them to maybe find something, but at E0 S1 characters, it's not, or at like best for their supports and stuff, it's not really that great. But yeah, Argenti, still usable in pure fiction kind of as a main DPS, but definitely needs Eidolon investment if you want him to be a main DPS and signatures and support Eidolons and support signatures. I do think as a support for the Herta though, he's actually not that bad. That's why I have him in the semi-viable. Definitely not as good as Anaxa in that team, but still can be played there. Is an option. Ratio I was actually able to use to get a like 7 cycle clear on the second half of MOC, the recent one that had the enemies that you wanted to bring the new Dan Heng form in, because I was testing some follow-up attack team with or stuff with that, and they have imaginary weakness, so Ratio is kind of good with them. I do think that Ratio only needs like a few fixes to really be viable. Like, if they made him a lot like how they have him in Currency Wars, where you can have multiple follow-up attacks with more debuffs, I think that could be a really interesting way to change his kit and kind of modernize it some. Xuan, I don't have, but I really do want to get Xuan so that way I can test some ideas that I have with teams with her. She is available to get if you lose a 50-50 on the on the limited banner, but I haven't had that happen yet. I did have that happen with Seele and Blade, but I have yet to have that happen with Swan, so kind of just waiting on that to happen inevitably because I lose a lot of my 50-50s. Dan Heng Imbibitor, I mean, the issue with Dan Heng is that he's a damage dealer, and he just doesn't deal enough damage to really do anything anymore, but he's still usable in certain situations if you have Sparkle. So he does require you to have Sparkle. Blade, as I said earlier, the rework changes just didn't really do enough for him. He is a lot better than he was, but yeah, like I probably could have even put him into the fall-off before the rework stuff, just because he had like attack scaling and stuff in his kit. It just was not great. Now it's a little bit better. I do think that if you're using him as like a sub DPS in the team, it's better just to have like Jinkly use sub DPS in that same spot. So there's still kind of not anything to really do with them. But I am building my Blade still because I want to test stuff with him because I like all the Stellar Hunters and I like Blade as a character in the story, so I want to test some stuff with him. Everything. Luocha, you can get him in the shop with one of those things they gave away that give you the free 5-star characters. He's one of the choices. I don't really recommend using it on him. He has some teams where he's useful. I mean, he's a healer with attack scaling, so not really the best option in any team, but an option in a lot of teams, so just kind of doesn't do as much as some of the other healers. Jing Yuan, maybe he gets another support in the next few patches that make him like somewhat viable again, and then he falls off once the supports get a proper teammate that is not Jing Yuan, which happens literally all the time. Or maybe they rework Jing Yuan and make him useful, but yeah, I'm kind of a Jing Yuan hater, so he was my first limited character of any Warriors Gacha, I will say, and I do have him, and I still try to use him and stuff. He's just not great, even with like some of his better team options that I have available. He's really only usable in pure fiction, and that's it. And even then, I'd rather play Serval in pure fiction. That's why I have her higher, because Serval teams are way more fun, because it's kind of more challenging. Like, I do think she's worse in a lot of situations than Jing Yuan, but she's just kind of fun to play. It's fun to use 4-star damage dealers whenever you can and stuff, so. Yeah, Seele, still really usable, really good innate kit, but her multipliers are really low is kind of the issue. Like, I'm trying to think of a character to compare Seele to. It's almost like Zillion in League, if that makes sense. Where I don't think she's like secretly broken, but or like Zillion is in a way. I guess maybe more like Brand, where if they do too many changes to her kit, it's just or they like don't really have to change anything to her kit to be like really strong. She's just kind of in a weak spot at the moment. But if they do rework her, which I do think that they likely will rework Seele out of most of the characters that haven't got a rework yet, I think she's really one of the more likely options. All they really have to do is just kind of increase her base multipliers, and she's really strong. I mean, you can just look at her ult multiplier versus Archer's for a direct comparison of a quantum damage thing, but people say that the real difference is that like Seele's is less energy, so therefore it's balanced that way, but I mean it's literally like half the damage of Archer's. Like I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think it's like 400% 800% multiplier difference between the two, and hers is like 20 less energy or something like that. Like it's just not a worthwhile trade with so many different energy generators and stuff in the game nowadays. Like yeah, it's just not really worth comparing in that way. Welt, useful in Acheron teams. I do like his idea of slowing down enemies, but the main thing is that everything in the game functions off of how fast you can do it, not how healthy you are in doing it, so, well, just kind of falls off there, and his multipliers are a little low. Once I have my Welt at E6, I do want to try some stuff with him, because my Welt's pretty close. I think he's at E5 right now. But, yeah, not really too much to say about him. Usable in Acheron teams, but I really don't think that there's anything else for him at the moment. It could be really fun to see him and like Dr. Ratio in a team if they rework Ratio, because he has debuffs. Maybe they rework World and give him more debuffs. I don't know. Imaginary team ideas, but yeah, Serval kind of mentioned just a slightly worse version of Jing Yuan in a way in terms of your just like AoE electric damage and stuff, but she's able to like spam ults. Her basic attack has AoE and stuff. She doesn't have like as good of like AoE outside of her ult as Jing Yuan, obviously, because her skill is a blast, but her teams are really fun. She's usable in Pure Fiction, and that's really it, but she is usable there, even nowadays, which is fairly impressive for a character that was given away for free for like a pre-order bonus, or not like pre-order, but like whenever Star was coming out, they would have people sign up on the website to like download it stuff because it's a free game, and that was like one of the bonuses for reaching a certain number of players, was everyone got a free Serval. Clara, just the worst version of Yunli. Lower multipliers, requires you to get hit to deal damage, so that sort of playstyle is falling off quite a lot. Yunli at least has like really high damage to make up for it, but Clara's just worse damage overall. Still usable in certain situations, but not really too great. You have to like have every single like one of her best in slot supports for her to work nowadays. So, but she's really fun to play. I kind of wish that there was a version of her in Currency Wars. Like, I think that a counter team in Currency Wars could have been really fun, because it's an archetype that you don't really get to see too much anymore. But yeah, one of the characters that didn't end up making the cut of Currency Wars. A few of them on this list didn't, like Bailu didn't. I'm trying to think of these. I mean, most of the ones that didn't are kind of down here. Like Arlen didn't make it. Base Donung did not make it. Phainon, Lynx, Luca, like a lot of characters down there did not make it. I think that a Sushang or a Shui could have been really fun in Currency Wars too. Like when I do I want to do a video talking about my thoughts on the Currency Wars characters and stuff. And when I do that, talk about the ones that I'd like to see in Currency Wars. I also think Currency Wars could have been a really good spot to see like Cinnabon or Screwlum as quote-unquote playable characters. Maybe have them be off-field supports that can't be put on-field, because you can put any off-field character on-field, but maybe have them be ones that you can't, just to have a way of having those characters do stuff in the game could have been really fun. Or Oleg. I'm an Oleg enjoyer. Back from Bellabog, because I'm early Star Rail player, so I still remember a lot of the older characters and stuff I think could have been really fun to bring back, but yeah, tangent aside, Bailu. Bailu can be used in HP draining teams, because she has a lot of HP, a lot of healing, so she's actually not that bad with Castorice. There's just not really a reason to run her over the best character in the game that everyone should get, so yeah. Like, Hyacinth just does everything Bailu does, but 10 times better, and also has... Well, she doesn't have the revive, obviously, that Bailu has, but that's why you just get Castorice, because she has the revive instead. It's Star Rail in 2025, I guess. And then next up we've got Asta. Still a really good support, gives speed, gives attack, gives defense. One of, I think, actually the only character in the game, I might be wrong on this, I believe she's the only character in the game that gives extra defense to people as a support. Like, all of your shielders just give a shield, but she actually increases the defense stat of characters with her stacks. They also increase the attack stat of your characters. If you don't know how Asta's kit works, because nobody really plays her anymore, but she is really fun. And I like to, like, use her in, like, really silly Hyacinth teams, because she gives a lot of speed to Hyacinth and that boosts her healing, but they're not really that good. Bronya has one of the greatest fall-offs in Star Rail, just because they keep coming out with better versions of Bronya. I mean, Sparkle as a better version is kind of debatable, but Sunday is a much better version of Bronya that pretty much does everything that she does, but better. She gives attack percent, which Sunday does not do. That's really the only difference. And she has like a follow-up attack, I guess. If you hit an enemy with a wind weakness, that does a tiny bit of damage. Like, it's really not that notable, but just a little bit of a bonus. Jade. I think Jade is really good in pure fiction still. Anytime that there's quantum weak enemies, you can always bring Jade. You can play Jade with the Herta really well. That's why I have her at the top of semi-viable, because I still use my Jade a lot. My Jade's E1, so the only character... Well, I guess Saber. I have E2. But Jade used to be the only character I have an idol on for that are a limited character, just because I got hers at like 10 pity while I was building pity for other characters, which is kind of why you don't build pity. I also got Hysilens while building pity for Evernight, but yeah, anytime that I build pity on stuff like that, I always plan to have that fail and me either get a character or me lose a 50-50 and then have the guarantee. And if I have the guarantee, then most of the time I don't build pity and I'll save up, like I did with Cyrene before she came out. But yeah, Jade, still really useful, does quite a lot of damage in the right teams and everything. Like, I really recommend her with the Herta if you're playing her nowadays. But still really strong in pure fiction, which... I mean, having characters that are only strong in one game mode is fine, because you still need to be able to clear that game mode. And you can, like, kind of use her in the, like, night stages of Anomaly Arbitration sometimes, but you'd have to have a really heavily invested Jade for it to really work, just because the enemies are a lot tankier there, so AoE damage is a bit less favored in general. Unless it's really high AoE damage, which Jade can reach, you just have to have more investment than E1 or E0 Jade, which I don't. So, yeah, next up is Black Swan. It's kind of hard to rate the dot characters. The reason I rate Black Swan so low is just because Hysilens is just... Like, I usually run my dot team as Hysilens, Kafka, support, sustain. Whereas you can also run triple dot and it still works with Black Swan, but Black Swan being the character that you cut out of that team just... and the team still perform well means that I don't think she's as useful. Still a really good character, has a lot of damage in her kit with dots and stuff. I would be interested to see what future dot units do, because just the way that dot works in general, it's really hard to have them truly fall off unless it's like Luca, who only applies one dot to one character, and even then he's like you can kind of just call him like a debuffer rather than a dot character, because his dot's far less significant than like his break debuffs, I guess. I mean, kinda, I don't know. But yeah, then Gwen still has dots, and she's still sometimes useful. Like, I could arguably put her up here. I just put her down here just because I was dragging all the characters. But as I said, this is not ordered anywhere on the list. But yeah, I still think Black Swan, pretty solid. I have her at E0, S0, and still use her from time to time. She does provide some defense down on enemies if you're using her outside of dot teams, and also she still applies her dots, but her dots cause them to have lower defense, so can fulfill niches with that. You can use her in like Acheron teams and stuff as one of your nihility characters, but definitely don't recommend pulling her over the other dot units for premium characters. And speaking of characters, I don't really recommend pulling over like other counterparts. We have dang, why am I forgetting his name? I don't have him on my... I guess this kind of summarizes my thoughts on Jiaoqiu. I'm remembering his name now. Jiaoqiu. Just a character I've never been interested in. I do want to get Acheron and play Acheron, and he is the best support for Acheron still. Despite like all the memes and everything surrounding his potential getting passed by Cypher. But I don't think that she's better than Jiaoqiu in Acheron teams, but yeah, Jiaoqiu, it's just, I don't know, I wanted him to be a dot healer, and he was not a dot healer, and so that's also a reason I don't like Jiaoqiu that much, is just because I wanted him to be something that he's not, so a bit of a personal bias as well. I'm not ever pulling the character on my account unless he's like free, like actually free, like they force him on my account is the only way I actually plan on pulling him. Even if I get Acheron, which I probably will eventually on my account, I still would not pull Jiaoqiu, because I'd just get whatever future support eventually replaces him in Acheron teams, which will probably happen eventually, but for now, he's okay. I honestly don't really know what his kit, like I've never looked at his kit outside of just seeing that it's not healing and dot. Like I don't know what his debuffs actually do. I'm guessing it just makes enemies take more damage, which is still really good. But he's literally only used in Acheron teams, and I don't have Acheron on my account, and I don't have him, so I just never really looked into his kit. Yeah, I don't think that there was any reason to, but I'll put him there just because he is used in that specific team, and he's really good in that team, so still viable character. Next up is Yunli, just better version of Clara, has counters, has a lot of damage. I kind of want Yunli on my account just to have like a good physical damage dealer, because right now I don't really have one. You could say I should get Phainon, but I would want Serena if I'm pulling Phainon nowadays, which would just start a rabbit hole of pulling characters and stuff, but yeah, I either want Yunli or Butil as my answer for physical characters, because currently I'm kind of lacking, because like Hysilens is a physical damage dealer, but she's not like, she's a dot character, so the weakness type of enemies are a bit less important for her, and it's not like as impactful in certain situations like that. But yeah, Yunli's still really strong, still playable. I mean, it's really high AoE damage, counter damage, fairly tanky for a character just because she is designed to get hit a lot. So yeah, you can still use her. Next up, Firefly. Definitely one of the like harder characters to kind of rank and stuff. A lot of people do like Firefly. I never really was interested in pulling for her or anything, just because I thought like you have single target damage healer, you have like mixed AoE and single, like you have like the middle ground, and then you have full AoE targeting as your DPS in a break team, and I felt like going for the AoE was going to be the best option, AoE or single target. I felt like going for the middle option never would have really been recommended, and that's kind of just shown itself to be the current state of Firefly, where she's really only usable with her premium team. I mean, same thing for Rappa. It's just like if you're playing the break team and you have like Rappa and Firefly on your account, 99% of the time you would just use Rappa. In any situation I would use Firefly. So yeah, I still think she's fairly good, and if you like invest in her, she's got potential. There's potentially an upcoming character for super break teams in the next patch that will drastically improve this character's performance, but I don't really know who it is, and I don't really know what they do outside of the fact that they are really good with Firefly and are a break support and replace a certain character in the break team instead of one that would be a bit more concerning. They replace one of the earlier characters in the break team, but they can also still be used to support the other break characters too, but specifically with Firefly, they are potentially really good. Not to discuss future things that haven't been released yet or anything, but yeah, next up, Sparkle. Sparkle is one I kind of thought about rating lower, but honestly, the release of Archer has definitely improved Sparkle. I do think for Archer to be like this high, you do need to have Sparkle on your account, because it's really, really hard as someone that does not have Sparkle on their account to play Archer without Sparkle. Like, you can make it work. I mostly just play Archer in like Hysilens wheelchair, so that's like Hysilens, Tribi, Archer, and RMC, and just build up a bunch of skill points and then use Archer's Burst and try to get people down. But if you have Sparkle, you can use them. With the next area, like 4.x versions of characters and stuff, could be seeing some more use in Sparkle with new upcoming characters, or like there will be Sparkle things, supposedly. I've heard people say in dreams and stuff or whatever, not to get into upcoming things that haven't been announced yet, but there will potentially be things with this character. I don't really know if Sparkle herself, as like this version, will see any changes or anything, but yeah, she still does her job in SP heavy teams and generates SP for her teams. Definitely not as strong of support outside of the SP generation as some of the other options in the game, but still really good in those SP teams, so like Archer and Imbibitor and stuff. Next up is Topaz. Really only useful in the like facial follow-up attack team, and even then there's like comparable replacements that you can do. She is available for free now if you wanted to grab a copy of her. I think Topaz still has potential to be really good, just making it where a single target will take 50% more damage from follow-up attacks is a really strong buff that I don't think, like, any follow-up attack team that has like a carry that is going to deal follow-up attack damage will always have the potential to have Topaz be relevant. So as long as that's like an option, it's really hard to replace her unless they come out with a character that's like, enemies now take 55% more follow-up attack damage. Then you would like fall off a cliff. But outside of that, she's still really good, and I just kind of like Topaz as a character in general. One of my favorite characters, like lore, design, just general. Like, if you were to ask me like to pick my favorite characters outside of meta relevancy and stuff, Topaz would be one of my favorites. So I'm a little bit biased towards her, but I still think she's really strong. Pela and Silverwolf, I put them both together just because Silverwolf's rework did make her better than Pela, but in my opinion, she was already still better than Pela. But they basically do the same thing. They just provide AoE defense shred. So I usually talk about them at the same time. But with the Silverwolf rework, she's far more usable than Pela. As I said, this is not ordered, so don't take it as that. I just put them together because I was going to talk about them together anyway. But yeah, Silverwolf, still really strong. now with AoE targeting makes her even stronger. I was still using Silverwolf fairly regularly to be able to clear in-game content, not like as the ones I would upload on YouTube, because the clears that I upload on YouTube are just my like first run through of in-game content where I use my best teams, and then I'll go in afterwards and just try out a bunch of different teams because I like playing Star Rail a lot. And I like using all of the characters on my account and seeing like what they all do and how they interact with the end game and stuff. And Silverwolf has still been usable there, but with the rework, she's definitely the character, in my opinion, that got the best use out of their rework and is still really solid. And then next up we've got Himeko, still really good in Super Break. Potentially upcoming characters will be really good with Himeko Super Break still. Outside of Super Break teams, it's a little harder to play her just because their multipliers are fairly low, but yeah, because in Super Break teams, your idea is to break, and she's like a hybrid crit break character, so her build is like really weird, where you have to have a bunch of crit rate, and then you also want to have decent break effect and attack percent and stuff, so that way your Super Break's still dealing damage, but you're also dealing damage whenever enemies are not weakness broken and stuff. But yeah, still a really solid character if you can get her built. For some reason, she's E0 on my account. I just can't get Eidolons for her anytime I lose a 50-50. I really want Himeko Eidolons because I think that she's the only like standard banner character, standard banner 5-star that's still worth playing and will probably still be worth playing even as we go into the next area in like 4.x. I think as once Super Break comes back, Himeko will see another resurgence like when Super Break first came out. Yeah, really solid. Herta, useful in Pure Fiction with the Herta, still really good. I just use her in like general in Pure Fiction as well, with like her and Jade are able to clear Pure Fiction together. Sometimes, like I feel like my Herta build for regular Herta is really good. It's kind of part of the reason why, and then I just usually have really solid supports in that team that also help them be able to clear. But yeah, kind of just tied to the Herta, but she is a 4-star character, so she's free. Really easy to get her E6 as well from playing Simulated Universe, the original version, which I kind of want to do a video going back to the original Simulated Universe at some point and trying out all the new characters, because I'm sure they just like one-shot everything that I used to be stuck on for a really long time back when the game came out. But yeah, next up we have Harmony MC. I actually recently, I didn't record my Anomaly Arbitration clear, but I did use Harmony MC in my night clear. For one of the nights is really weak into Super Break, but you need a really good Super Break team, or you just run it sustainless with Harmony MC, Rion Mei, Fugue, and I ran Rappa as my DPS, because that's my break DPS that I use most of the time. And they were able to clear, just barely. I had to like E1 my Rion, or I didn't have to E1 my Rion Mei probably to be able to clear it, but I did E1 my Rion Mei using one of my things to be able to clear it. But yeah, still really good. Just AoE, imaginary damage, enables Super Break. Just kind of a worse version of Lingsha, but she is free. Or I mean not Lingsha, Fugue. But the thing is, like, pulling Fugue enables you to be able to use different forms of MC for other teams and stuff, so I don't really recommend building her if you plan on going for Super Break in the future, and it's better just to build and get Fugue for that kind of a thing. But is an option if you already have her built like me, because back in the day before Fugue came out, this was your only way of dealing Super Break damage, so I still have her build from then, and it still works a little bit. Probably could refine it a bit more, but I'd rather focus on other characters for now. And then next up we have one of the newest characters, the Danheng PT. I don't remember what. It's like Terravox or something? I don't know. But yeah, the Shielding Danheng physical provides pretty decent shields, scales off of attack, does pretty negligible damage. I was gonna say alright, but no, it's actually just really bad damage. But does provide a lot of attack buffs to the person he gives the dragon to. And I believe the dragon enables you to get Sunday buffs as like that person having a summon. So really good with Sunday as well. In certain teams, I like playing him with like Saber sometimes. Or you can play him with... I'm trying to think of another... Oh yeah, there's like certain versions of facial teams that use them, but it's kind of better to use Aventurine in those teams, because Aventurine is still really good. He's better in like high frequency attack enemies, because that charges up his follow-up attack really quickly, whereas Dan Heng's better for the really big hits that are less frequent. He's better at blocking those, whereas Aventurine, still usable for stuff, and he's still, in my opinion, Aventurine's still the best preservation unit in the game, just because he does it's kind of negligible now, but it's still better than Dan Heng, in my opinion, damage. And it's imaginary damage, so if you get weakness breaks, then you get the imaginary weakness break on them, which is much better than the physical one for non-dot characters. And yeah, I have a better build on my Aventurine. He scales off a defense as well, so it's a lot easier to build him than it is Dan Heng, because you kind of need Dan Heng's signature, whereas Aventurine's a bit more flexible. And still really usable in follow-up attack teams, and follow-up attack teams are still really good, so yeah. Next up we have Ceridra. So I do think Ceridra is kind of in a situation like Topaz was back whenever Topaz first came out. Like, a lot of people skipped Topaz just because they didn't really see... Like, I don't really know why they didn't see this, but like, people didn't... They thought of Topaz as like Topaz being the DPS rather than Topaz as a sub-DPS / support character. Whereas Ceridra, I don't think she was skipped because people couldn't see that... They like just see the one niche of her with Phainon, but any like future attack scaling characters have really good potential with Ceridra to like see her be one of their best in slot teammates. So I feel like she has a lot of potential in buffing future characters outside of Phainon. She is really good with Phainon still, but yeah, I think she has the potential to move up to like more of a staple character than just like a viable character. But yeah, I don't know the future obviously, but just kind of my take on Ceridra. I didn't pull her myself just because I wasn't planning on pulling Phainon because I wanted to get Saber, but if I do get Phainon in the future, which I kind of want to, I would probably get Ceridra for that team, and then Ceridra could also potentially be used in other teams in the future. Boot Hill, kind of in a similar situation to Firefly, but I mean, needs single target, so if there's like single target enemies that you want to bring a break team in, you just bring in Boot Hill. Still does really good damage and everything. Kind of not too much to say about him, just high burst, single target damage with break teams and stuff, so still has relevance there. And then last in the viable Jingliu, her rework just saw her become an HP scaler. Can use her as like a sub DPS in Castorice teams or in Evernight teams, like I showed a video a few weeks ago and stuff, but yeah, her damage as like a main DPS is really not as great as most of the Amphorius characters, so it's kind of hard to recommend her in that role, but as a sub DPS, she has some interesting options, but I definitely wouldn't recommend pulling her unless you just like her character and stuff, because it's a lot harder to play her nowadays over other characters, but she's still really good, so that's why I have her in viable. I wouldn't put her at like the top of viable like I did here. I was just like putting the characters in the tier. I said it's not tiered, but she is still really good and stuff. And I mean, she's kind of like still a really solid character. It's kind of hard to say where her place will be in the future. I think that she probably doesn't have that much longer of meta relevance even after her buffs, but she's not necessarily gonna like fall off down to here. She's gonna be like in the semi-viable where like she's an option, but there's definitely much better ones, which she's kind of already in that spot. But yeah, you can still use her to clear content now, at least, so that is a thing. Next, we're into the staples, so Cypher, really high damage in the right setups and stuff, for a support at least, specifically with single target damage as well, obviously. Really good with Acheron if you want that option, or just like a good general debuffer. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what the future of this character will be, because I feel like her best team doesn't currently exist, but she's really good as like a debuffing option in a lot of teams, which there's not that many options for in the game right now, and the options that we do have are kind of weird, so I feel like if there will be like a future debuff-centered DPS like Acheron or Ratio, then could see her being really useful in that team. Maide, really solid DPS. Definitely not as strong as some of the other Emphorius characters and stuff that have been getting a lot more teammates and stuff that help them out than some of Maide's options, but still really good character. I don't have him, but I would pull Maide just because I liked him in the story, so I kind of want to pull him for that reason at least. But yeah, still really solid. Next up, Aglaia, just kind of like a better version of Jing Yuan in every way. There's just no reason to play Jing Yuan over Aglaia. Like, you literally just use the same team that you use Jing Yuan, but you just put Aglaia in that spot, and it actually becomes usable in modern Star Rail instead of what Jing Yuan does. She's good in like every mode as well, not just limited to pure fiction, unlike Jing Yuan. High speed scaling does require a kind of harder to obtain substat line for her to really pop off, but once you get the build down, then you don't really have to like refarm for her, because relic set is really good for her. But I mean, they could come out with something in the future that's better, but yeah, overall really solid character. Next up is Anaxa. So Anaxa was designed to be like a sub DPS for the Herta, but as like a standalone DPS, I wasn't gonna say standard, but as a standard or a standalone DPS, still really good on his own. Has surprisingly high damage. I kind of want to pull him to like test his like standard DPS things. Like I had my little like status in Star Rail as surely E0S1 Cyrene will be better than E0S0 Anaxa, because I could have pulled Anaxa during the banner last patch if I wanted to, but I just waited for Cyrene, and I don't regret that or anything, but I was kind of considering it as an option, but I kind of have my account set up in a way to where I had to pull Cyrene because I pulled Castorice, pulled Evernight, pulled... I had all the rest of the pieces there, so Cyrene was just kind of like the final piece of that team, so pulled her instead. But I do think Anaxa is a really interesting character that I think could easily still be relevant in 4.x and everything. So I'm interested to see, like, if he ever gets like some other supports that are like more centered for him than just being the Herta support. Could be really interesting to see. He's also really good with Ceretra, by the way. A little bit of secret text. Ceretra is not just a Phainon support, she also works with Anaxa. So one way that you see that she's not, or she has a potential to not just be like really niche. But yeah, next up is the Herta. So the Herta is like one of the Emanators. That's the word I was thinking of the other day. So like Emanators are characters that are kind of like Archons in a way, but not really. They're more like Void Hunters in ZZ, where they have like more of a special status and could see more supports come out in the future that keep them meta relevant. So that's why I have both of the Emanators in the staple tier, because I would recommend pulling them if you're ever pulling a DPS that's rerunning, just because I could see them having supports that make them relevant just because they have really strong story implications. So usually characters like that, like the Archons or the Void Hunters in ZZZ, are just really strong and are kept strong because of their like lore relevance and stuff. But yeah, the Herta really good in Pure Fiction, pretty solid in MOC and Apocalyptic Shadow as well, but obviously probably the best character in Pure Fiction, just because the best AoE damage dealer. Speaking of AoE damage dealers, we have Rappa, who is definitely the character that I should have put Rappa above Firefly, because this was an ordered, or was this ordered? I don't think so, because there's no way I had Sparkle at the top of my ordered list. Yeah, there's no way this was ordered. So yeah, I could kind of tell that Rappa was likely going to be better than like Firefly, at least in terms of lasting, just because the game was getting more and more AoE focused towards the end of Penacony, just because they were starting to get ready for characters like the Herta to come out in Tribute that are really AoE focused, so they started making content more AoE focused, so Rappa kept seeing more and more relevance, and yep, now she's still really relevant. I have mine at easier S1, so a little bit better than the average Rappa maybe, but yeah, I know a lot of people skipped her just because she was kind of like one of the last Penacony characters, so everybody was saving up for the move over to Amphoreas and stuff, but yeah, ended up being a really solid character and still really solid. I could see her still being relevant in 4.x, but probably falling off like early into 4.x, but will at least be relevant for the first few in-game modes to come out on the next planet. And then same thing with Fugue, still a really solid character in break teams. Potential future break supports are likely not to conflict with her status in super break teams, so still really solid as like the best support in super break teams. So if you want to play super break, just get Fugue. And then Gallagher and Lingsha together, like, they're about the same. Lingsha is a arguable noticeable upgrade in break teams nowadays, but Gallagher has relevance in Castorice teams that Fugue does not, or I mean Lingsha does not, which is kind of funny, because, or at least to me, I find it kind of funny just because there is a lot of debate around like whether Gallagher or Lingsha was like, if Lingsha is worth pulling for break teams, and now you just don't even use Gallagher in break teams anymore. You use them in like Castorice teams if you're like a free-to-play player with Castorice. So I just kind of found that situation to be a bit like ironic in a way. But yeah, both characters still really good in break teams as the healer. Lingsha definitely the better option for break teams. Gallagher really good healing and skill point generation as well. You can use some with skill point heavy characters if you need a healer that is a lot less skill point reliant and actually generates them with his ult, of course. So still relevant there and everything. Next up is Acheron. Kind of like I said about the Herta, she is an emanator, so I think that she will be relevant. Her teams still are able to clear content, even though her damage is a lot more like average DPS damage nowadays than the best DPS damage. Like, she was one of the first characters that like hit like 1 million damage pretty consistently in in-game content, and now like most characters are hitting millions of damage in in-game content consistently. Just the state of Star Realm in 2025. But yeah, whenever more Nihility characters come out, there will always be, will this character work with Acheron as like, or be like an Acheron support as like a question. That replaces Jiaoqiu probably, but maybe not. Maybe no one will ever replace Jiaoqiu, and he's just like the meme version of him. It's like some cosmic horror, like what people do with Garfield. Maybe that happens, but yeah, I could see future Nihility characters being really good with Acheron and everything. Still a really solid, like, innate design of a character. Just any character that has like ults that don't charge with energy, in my opinion, are also like really interesting because they have potential flexible support options that other characters don't have in that way. And speaking of that, we have Fei Xiao next. So Fei Xiao, still the best, not the best single target damage dealer in the game. That honor belongs to Archer now, but the best follow-up attack damage dealer in the game, at least. And I think that will still be the case going into 4.x for a little bit until they come out with like a follow-up attack character in 4.x, but they haven't done that in Emporius yet. So, I mean, there's like one character that has follow-up attacks in Emporius at least. I believe that Might Ace does not count as a follow-up attack, but I might be wrong on that. But Triby's, like, whenever you ult with Triby, you get a bunch of charges. Whenever other characters ult, Triby will fire off a rocket. That counts as a follow-up attack. So, yeah, the Amphorius supports are actually really good with Fei Xiao. So not only does she have her classic follow-up attack team of, like, Aventurine, Topaz, and Robin, but you can also use characters like RMC, Triby, trying to think of the other... Oh yeah, the new Dan Heng. They're all really good with Fei Xiao as well. Like, some different options in her teams nowadays, but I do think her, like, main follow-up attack team is still probably the best for her personal damage, but if you wanted your other characters to be dealing damage as well, you can use some of the Amphorius supports, or Sunday as well as an option. Although he doesn't deal damage himself, but he still enables your Fei Xiao to be really solid in a lot of teams. And then Wafa, I always complain about her nowadays just because her healing is kind of subpar, but her energy generation is just kind of too good to not be a staple character. I'm just kind of waiting for them to come out with a character that's just her but better, because that probably will happen eventually, where you just have another character that has AoE energy generation. Maybe they don't have healing, but the healing part of Wafa, it is relevant because it does keep you alive, because you're mostly slotting her in for that team, but it's getting pretty close with the damage enemies deal nowadays for E0, S0, Wafa at least. But yeah, the energy generation is just like way too good, and she also provides attack buffs that are like kind of relevant in certain teams, but they're not as good as someone like King Yuan's attack buffs. But she heals, gives attack buffs, gives energy. Like, those are all really good things for a lot of characters, so too good not to have as a staple, even if her healing is kind of falling off. And then Kafka and Hysilens, I put them together just because it's really hard to say which one is better. Like, I don't... Like, obviously, Kafka on her own is not as good as, like, Hysilens on her own, but you don't really want to play either one on their own. You always want to play them together, just because Kafka triggering the dots is really good, and then Hysilens being the dot generator is also important. That's why it's, like, really hard to evaluate how Kafka really fares after the rework. I do run her on the Eagle set after the rework and stuff, just so that way she spams ult and everything. I still think that's the best version of Kafka to run if you are E0 Kafka. Even E0 S1 now gets replaced by the before the tutorial mission starts light cone, which is a little sad because there's like no one that uses the Kafka light cone, but maybe they will rework that in the future. I don't know. I wish that they will, so that way it's, you know, not a waste of a light cone, but yeah, I mean, you can still use it on Kafka if your Kafka is E4, but yeah, it's not really recommended to, like, I wouldn't recommend using it, at least if you're running equal Kafka, just because before the tutorial missions, a lot of energy and everything, so you can spam ult. But yeah, dot team, still really relevant. They keep coming out with new in-game stuff that requires you to run the dot team, like Anomaly Arbitration. Both the previous one and the current one have something that dot is really good into. And Cyrene is like kind of interesting in dot teams as well, but it's hard to generate charges for her ult in it, so wouldn't really recommend her in the dot team unless you get her E2, but yeah, the dot team, still really good. Hysilens a great addition into it. As I said earlier, I got Hysilens from building Pity for Evernight. I didn't really intend on getting Hysilens, I was just going to skip her, but I didn't want to skip her, I just wanted to make sure I got Evernight. Still ended up getting her, so glad that I was able to do that. But my Hysilens, E0, S0, able to clear content perfectly fine with that. just because her innate dot kit is really strong as like a dot character, so having the rest of the dot team function with her is still really good. Ting Yun, still obviously arguably the best like 4-star character in the game. Still really relevant. Attack percent buffs, energy buffs, a little bit of extra lightning damage on your attacks, but I mean that's not the relevant part, just the energy generation and everything. Will really be hard to find a time where Ting Yun's not relevant and everything, just because anytime that you're like missing or anytime you need a support for a team and maybe your other supports are busy doing other stuff, like your Robin's on one team, your Sunday's on one team, your Ronmei, like everybody's split everywhere, then you could just put Ting Yun there. She works really good with Saber as well and everything, so yeah, I mean, it's Ting Yun, there's not really anything to say about her. Pretty much everybody should know how she works nowadays. It's kind of like the Bennett of this game almost. Like, it's not that she's the best option, it's just that she's still really good and really easy to build and everything. And then next up we've got Robin, who I used to rate an optimal, and I even still kind of would say that she's optimal just because her action advance is so ridiculously strong, but like, yeah, outside of that, like, her attack buffs are really good too, but not every team makes meaningful use of all the attack buff, and then not every team makes use of the follow-up attack buffs, but they are still parts of her kit that are really good. Yeah, just really strong characters still, but not as good as many of the more recent supports, or Ronmei, in my opinion. I still think it's a little bit better in terms of like being a general support than like, it's harder to stick Robin in a team than it is Ronmei by like a little bit, just because you can stick Ronmei with literally any DPS, whereas Robin wants them to scale off of attack. Like, you can kind of run her with Castorice, but Ronmei just is, and Ronmei's also free, so it's just kind of hard to compare them nowadays. But yeah, Saber. My Saber is E2, so my Saber is really good, personally, but Saber is still really strong. Not as strong as Archer of the two, but in their premium teams. However, Saber is still really good if you have her premium team and everything. She outputs about as much damage as your like Castorices and Phainons and stuff, but a little bit less compared to premium versus premium. If you're like semi-premium Castorice versus full premium Saber, Saber's about on par with that. So like if you had Castorice, Hyacin, Tribi, and like RMC as your team, Saber would be competitive with that as the premium version, but once you get like Evernight and Cyrene, then Castorice is a little bit better. But yeah, still really strong, and will likely still continue to be good into 4.x. I could see them actively buffing these two characters because they're only available for a limited amount of time, so they might retroactively buff them, which they didn't, and I don't think they have ever done with any of the crossover characters that Hoyo's had, like with the Honkai and Back Third or Genshin, obviously with Alloy. It's never been buffed either, but I could see them doing that with Star Rail, but maybe they won't. Who knows? Future, not the easiest thing to predict, but yeah, they're still really good for now at least, and I could see them easily still being relevant in 4.x. People like Doom post 4.x stuff a lot and say that like, oh yeah, all these like Castorice people are like, or all these people pulling Cyrene for Castorice are just like wasting their pools and stuff, and that they'll all fall off in 4.x. But I mean, the way that at least the transition from 2.x to 3.x has worked, in my opinion, like a lot of the 2.x characters are still really relevant, or even some 1.x characters still relevant, and like even the worst ones are still viable in their premium teams, at least nowadays. Maybe whenever we get to 4.x characters like Firefly are gonna fall off more, but like, who knows, maybe Horrorverse will actually like not power creep them directly, or maybe Horrorverse will go in and buff them. There's a lot of different options. They don't just have to continue with HP inflation to make the game more difficult. There's other ways that they can do it and everything, but they also can do it in ways, like there are paths that Hoyoverse can take in the future with in-game content to make it still challenging and rewarding for long-time players, but not something that shuts out other characters from being usable and stuff. So if Hoyoverse chooses to do that, I could still see many of the characters being relevant. Yeah, kind of tangent out of the way. On to Archer. I do think Archer does require Sparkle to be up here. If you don't have Sparkle, then he's like down here, in my opinion. But if you do have Sparkle, he's up here. Really strong character, still. Like, his innate hit's really strong, even without Sparkle. Like, it's fairly obvious that he just does a lot of damage. It's just so hard to play him if you don't have a good source of SP generation. Like, Hanya just does not cut it a lot of the time, so... Yeah, like, I wouldn't say that he's free-to-play friendly, because I would not recommend free-to-play players pull Sparkle, because I just don't think that she's really meta-relevant enough to pull. The only reason I have her up here is because if you already have her, then everyone gets Archer for free nowadays, so, and then you can run those two together. But if you did not have Sparkle, I would not really recommend pulling her just for Archer, because they could definitely come out with another SP generating support for Archer in the future, and that would also... That's also kind of the reason why I rated him up here, just because he could still have future supports that are better than Sparkle, or like Sparkle 2.0s or whatever, that would make him still be really strong. But highest single target damage in the game still, so I mean that's nothing to write off in any case. You just have to have the SP to be able to do it. So if you don't have Sparkle, you have to like make him like a really big burst and hope that everything gets taken out in one rotation. But if you have Sparkle, you're able to have a few more rotations with your burst. Yeah, RMC, I mean, true damage is just ridiculously strong. 100% action advance, ridiculously strong. Decent personal damage. Can really slot into any team in the game just because true damage is relevant. Like, I even run RMC in dot teams sometimes. Like, this character is just really strong, innate kit-wise. I don't see them making a stronger version of the MC in the future. I mean, like, people always would say, like, Dendro MC and Genshin was, like, one of the best main characters of, like, any Horrorverse game in terms of, like, their strength. But I think RMC is just so ridiculously strong with action advance and true damage and stuff that it's going to be really hard to replace them with future characters. I'm interested to see what the future characters would do with like whatever the 4.x version of the main character would be, but yeah, RMC just really strong. I mean, if you've messed around with this character any bit, then you just know that this character is really ridiculous in a lot of teams. So yeah, next up is Cyrene, who is kind of a better version of RMC, but only for teams that use Chrysos Eris characters. If you're not using the Chrysos Eris, then RMC is better. But yeah, I mean, Cyrene just came out a few days ago. Her ult, obviously, is the big thing. Takes a while to charge if you're not running, or especially if you're not running Remembrance characters, because you need those memo sprites to be able to get the extra charges. But in her best teams, she does really, really well. And in the other teams, she's like kinda not relevant at all. But like, you're only really pulling Cyrene, A, if you like Cyrene, I guess, and then B, if you're wanting your Chrysos Air DPS team to reach its full potential, which Cyrene enables that, but outside of that, she's not really enabling anything else. So it's kind of hard to rate her, in my opinion, just because, like, I know even, like, Pridwin has, like, recently changed the rating because they had her in, like, T1 and now she's T0 and all this stuff. She is in the teams that are going to be clearing content at the best, and she is, like, enabling them to do that, but she's not really strong outside of those teams, if that makes sense. Like, she's in the best teams, but she has no teams outside of those teams. Like, characters like Castorice don't need Cyrene as much as Cyrene needs Castorice in a way, almost. Like you could run RMC over Cyrene in that team and still be able to clear content well. You just won't be able to clear it as well as with Cyrene, I guess. But yeah, next up is Evernight. Really strong sub DPS, really strong solo DPS. I don't really know what the future holds for Evernight in terms of if she's like relevant as a DPS in the future, but as a sub DPS for Castorice, I think she'll be relevant for a long time. Kind of locked to Hyacin. You do really need Hyacin for Evernight to do anything, but yeah, I mean, Evernight's damage is kind of ridiculous with stacks. Really easy to get stacks with her best teams. In teams where you can't get stacks as easily with her, it's a bit harder to recommend playing her, obviously. But yeah, I mean, characters like Jing Yuan can enable Evernight to get a ton of stacks as well. So could have potential options with future characters as well. Like, I think one thing about the Remembrance characters is that they have potential for more supports than just what they currently have that could make them meta-relevant in 4.x really easily. But guess we'll have to see what 4.x characters are going to be like for that sort of a prediction to be true. And then next up is Phainon and Castorice. I put them both at the same because, I mean, Phainon's premium team and Castorice's premium team both are able to clear all forms of in-game content at about the same rate. You do want their premium teams. Like, I would recommend getting either the best version of Castorice's team or the best version of Phainon's team, and like just making, like, if you're having a meta relevant account, I would at least recommend one of your two teams that you run on in-game content be one of these two characters in their premium supports, because they both have full premium teams that they do kind of need to be at their strongest. But yeah, they should, like, I could easily see these two being relevant towards the end of 4.x, just like how Rappa's still really relevant and Facial still really relevant at the end of 3.x. Here at the end of Amphorius, these characters are still really relevant. I could see these two being meta relevant with their premium teams in the same way and stuff. And then last tier, I'm just like not even really gonna elaborate on this tier because I feel like it doesn't really need elaboration. It's just, I mean, you know, these guys, these are the supports to have. Although Hyacin is kind of especially notable because she's not just like a support, she's a healer, but her S1 just enables so many different things that it's like just too much of an upgrade for so many different teams that it's like pretty much impossible to not recommend pulling it. And Hyacin, she is kind of locked to it though. But if you have her on your team's just never dying. So yeah, there's kind of nothing. Like, I don't think there's like any way for a normal standard gameplay team to die with Hyacin on your team. So just universal best healer in terms of just raw healing and everything. So yeah, and you get to have little Ika on your team, which is always fun. Seeing a big unicorn deal a ton of damage. Sunday also kind of an interesting pick. I think Sunday just has shown that his single target action advantage is really strong, and buffing characters with summons is good. There will be more characters in the future that come out with summons. We've already seen it in Dan Heng, being able to give people summons and stuff. So there will still be characters with summons in the future. So as long as that's the case, Sunday will always be relevant until they come out with like a Sunday 2.0. Then, yeah, in my opinion, that's why he's an optimal character. Veron May, high damage percent, gives weakness break efficiency, gives just a lot of damage, makes it where There's delays whenever enemies recover from weakness breaks. Just really strong innate kit. Plus, she's free, so no reason not to have her own Mei in your account. I'm pretty sure most people have her own Mei. And then Tribi is just kind of like a better version of her own Mei. Just no weakness break efficiency, no delay turns, but instead you get really high personal damage, follow-up attacks, and like really big ult spam. And Tribi's buffs are better by a little bit, but it's pretty notable. And stuff. And Tribi is also a character that has really good synergy with Hysilens, so you can always run like these two together, plus like any number of characters, and you'll have a really strong team. If it's like a character that doesn't have a summon, then you can run these two with like RMC and that character, so like these two, RMC and Phainon, you can run. And then if they do have a summon, you run these two and Sunday. So for a team like Evernight teams or whatever, or I mean not really Evernight, it's kind of like a Glaya teams, you can run these two with a Glaya or Jing Yuan and stuff. Just because it's harder for Sunday to maintain his buff with Evernight, so that was kind of a bad example, but you get the idea. But yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on every character that I rated in the list. Like, I don't think that it's worth mentioning any of the fall-off characters. They're just not relevant. I made a video a while ago comparing Gepard and Yanqing, and people got mad because I said that Gepard was useless, and they said that he was relevant in, like, Acheron teams because he provides debuffs on people. So I guess I'll mention it here. Yes, he can do that. Should you run literally any other character so that way your team actually does damage output? Yes, but he can do that. That is a thing he can do. So he does have potentially one relevant team, whereas Yanqing kind of doesn't. But like, literally any other, like, I would rather run Welt as the sustain option given the choice, because Welt gives way better debuffs and also delays the enemy and actually has personal damage, which is something that Gepard, like, I just think Gepard's just not worth mentioning nowadays. But yeah, I don't know, I guess I'll just say it there. I mean, you could even run like freaking Preservation Trailblazer instead, because they have higher personal damage than Gepard, but I mean their sustain would be worse, I guess. I don't know, it's just run like Dan Heng, he's free. I guess at that point. But yeah, that's it for me for now. I know this video is kind of long, and a lot of my videos recently have been long. I'm trying to get shorter videos. It's just the nature of ringing a bunch of characters. There's so many now that this video is going to be kind of long and stuff. But yeah, I will try to timestamp it before it's uploaded. Hopefully, if not, it will be timestamped a little bit after it's uploaded, of me, like when I talk about each specific individual character, just like my last tier list was. But I didn't have this one scripted out, so it's a bit harder for me to track, and I was kind of rambly. But yeah, that's where I'm going to end things for now. So yeah, there will be a new Currency Wars video tomorrow. I'm still experimenting with a bunch of teams and stuff, so be expecting more of those. And I might do a tier list for Currency Wars in the future, but I'm not really planning on it right now. At least not within this week or next week. So yeah, that's going to be it for now. Guys, I'll see everyone in the next one.